It's a new interview with David Letterman that everyone is talking about. Kim, obviously she's an open book, but we learned a lot about her a fascinating journey in this new season of My Next Guest Needs No Introduction. And our next guest, I'm going to give her an introduction because she deserves it. Joining us now is ET Online's Ash Croston. She hosts ET Live's Stream Queens every week. She joins us now to talk about the new tidbits we learned about Kim in this new interview. Ash, I feel like there was a time where we used to make fun of Kim, and now we're not laughing anymore. You said, love or hate Kim, everyone should watch this interview. Why?
You know, I don't really understand why it's still so trendy to hate on Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
We know exactly who she is. She's a very rich woman. Sometimes she's on her own plane, like literally and figuratively. But she uses her platform to do good things. She's working on prison reform, sentencing reform. She's whip smart. She's not an airhead. She's a really savvy businesswoman. And yes, initially she got famous for being famous, but you don't stay famous. We see people come and go every single year, all these boneheads. She has stayed famous for a very long time, and there's a good reason for that. She's a smart woman. And also, I think on the Letterman side, these in-depth sit-down interviews that we see from him are pretty rare these days. Most videos with celebrities, they're 8 minutes long, or they're spent playing a fun game or a gimmick, which, don't get me wrong, I love those too. But I think seeing someone sit down and open up like this is super rare these days.
For sure.
Ash, let's get into, you mentioned obviously this is an in-depth interview, and so there's a lot of room to talk about, a variety of topics. So let's kind of dive into those topics, starting with the OJ Simpson trial. Of course, Kim's late father, Robert Kardashian, was OJ Simpson's defense attorney back in 1994 during the murder trial, and Kim's mother, Kris, was friends with Nicole Brown Simpson. Well, we saw with David Letterman that Kim opened up about how this tore the family apart. Take a listen.
She was believed that, her friend was murdered by him, and that was really traumatizing for her. And then we'd go to my dad's house, and it was a whole other situation there. And it would be like Johnny Cochran, Bob Shapiro, my dad, like the whole team. So we didn't really know what to believe or whose side to take as kids, because we didn't want to hurt one of our parents' feelings. And my dad took us to court one day with him, and he took us out of school and didn't tell my mom. And I remember my mom was sitting with Nicole's parents, and Courtney and I were sitting right behind OJ, and we look over at my mom, and she's giving us this death stare, what are you doing out of school? What are you doing here? And Courtney and I were just look straight, do not look at mom. It kind of tore our family apart, I'd say, for the whole time of the trial.
Wow. She said she was 13 or 14 during that time. What surprised you the most about her recollection of that time, Ash?
Yeah, she doesn't really go into her personal opinions about the trial, but I think one of the most interesting takeaways there was that was really her first brush with the media. And she talks about how her dad let her drive back then when she was 14 years old.
Right.
But she showed up at her dad's house, I guess, and the media and cameras were all out front and taking pictures of her. And there was a story that his Robert Kardashian's mistress had shown up to the house. And Kim is like, I am not his mistress. I'm his 14-year-old daughter. So that was her first brush with the media ever, was this whirlwind trial that tore apart her family.
Speaking of family, she talks a lot about the family, and of course, including her stepfather, Caitlyn Jenner. What do we learn about their relationship here?
Yeah, so I don't, I keep up with the Kardashians, but they're very hard to keep up with entirely because they're all over social media and their show and interviews and things like that. But so maybe she's talked about this somewhere else, but Caitlyn talked about in some interview that Kim was the one that knew first that she was transitioning, and Kim had held on to that secret the longest between, her family, didn't even tell her mom. But Kim kind of opens up about how she was the one who walked in on Caitlyn dressed as a woman for the first time and had to keep this secret from her mom. And I think, a lot has changed in the last few years. A lot has changed. And I think we kind of know now how to react or how to kind of process. And there's a lot of resources on what to do if someone around you is, coming out as transgender. But she talks about how back then she didn't know what to do. So she was searching on the internet with Courtney, and they only found this one tiny, like, Oprah interview.
And I walked right past her into my room, packed a bag so fast, and called Courtney and was like, I have to come over to your house. And she said, oh my God, you caught Bruce cheating. And I said, I wish. Like, I'll see you soon. And I drove over there, and we had a computer, and we were looking up, like, what does this mean? And the only thing that we found online was an Oprah episode on a transgender woman. And we still couldn't really understand what it meant. And then Bruce called my phone and said, whenever you're ready, I'd love to sit you down and talk to you. But in the meantime, don't tell a soul. Your mom has no idea, and she will kill me.
Wow.
It's crazy to think how young she was when that first happened. And then, of course, it wasn't until years later that all of it really became public, you know? And it's also crazy to think about how many things did go on in that family throughout the course of her life. I mean, you know what I mean? The past 40 years, it's wild.
So many things have gone on in the course of all of their lives, and we've actually seen it documented and play out on their hit show, of course. And one thing that I found interesting that Kim went really in depth with David Letterman as well was the Paris robbery that she experienced years ago. You know, we've heard Kim talk about it before on the show, and we saw the aftermath of it, but really I feel like she was so detailed and in depth in this interview. Take a look.
He grabbed me and pulled me towards him, but I wasn't wearing anything underneath. So I was like, okay, this is like the time I'm gonna get raped, like just deal, like it's gonna happen, you know, like just prepare yourself. So I did, and then, I don't know why I'm crying, I've talked about this before. But then he tied me up with handcuffs and then zip ties and then duct tape. And then duct tape my mouth and my eyes. And before he had my eyes, before he duct taped my eyes, because that was the last thing, I saw he found my whole jewelry box.
It's hard to watch that back and listen to.
I know. I have the chills because, go on, Ash, sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, especially just seeing Chris and Courtney in the audience and her talking about how, like, Courtney was out and she thought that Courtney was going to come home and just, like, find her, like, and just to watch her react to that and watch the family react to that in the audience, it breaks my heart. And then I just think about how so many people at that time, do you guys remember how many people thought that she was making that up?
Yes. But I remember how serious it turned, you know, and how dark. And I feel like we saw some of it play out on the show, but I don't know, something about this interview really struck a chord. And not just with that incident, but just her reflecting on her journey. I mean, overall, Ash, what struck you the most about this episode and this interview, or how revealing Kim was being?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just that, like, we watched the show knowing that they have control over their narrative, right? They have control over how much or how little they want you to see to an extent. Their social media, same thing. You know, they're revealing what they want to reveal. And I do think they're an open and honest family for the most part. But I think something like this, where it's just a little more raw and a little more honest than it could be on the show, is just like, my hat's off to her for opening up like that. I think she's incredible.
Well, Ash, before we let you go, it is Kim's 40th birthday, and I want to end on a lighter note. There have been so many iconic moments in pop culture history in general, courtesy of Kim Kardashian, but especially on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So let's take a look back at some of our favorite Kim moments. I'll start with mine. It's, of course, Kim taking selfies in the car while Khloe was potentially going to jail. Let's take a look.
Your sister's going to jail. Have a little compassion.
Kim, would you stop taking pictures of yourself? Your sister's going to jail.
Chloe's gone.
Here, Kim, this one.
I mean, doesn't get better than that, you guys. Cast your own favorite.
Actually, it does get better than that, Jen. Do you remember when Kim became a meme after crying over Chris Humphries? I mean, literally, when you search for a GIF of Kim Kardashian, this is the screenshot that pulls up on Instagram, on the GIF app, like everywhere. It's kind of, you know, when you're really crying about something, a lot of people will make a joke and be like, I'm Kim K crying, because of that scene right there.
It's become even a little sticker on our Slack channels.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Ash, do you have a favorite Kim memory that comes to mind?
Obviously, like losing the diamond earring in the ocean, although that was more of a Courtney moment, but it was so good. And then there's one that's like more recent when Scott didn't know that Kim was having another baby, and Kim's reaction is just like, "Are you joking right now?" And I just, so good.
It's exciting to think about where this, like, the next decade will take her, you know?
I think the 40s are going to be Kim's possibly best decade yet, because I feel like the late half of her 30s and now into the 40s, she's redefined what people thought of her as in like the late 20s, early 30s almost. And, we've seen Kim become this incredible mother, wife, businesswoman, entrepreneur, and now, aspiring lawyer. And I know, Ash, you mentioned earlier, she's doing so many great things with her platform, like prison reform. And she's really showing these people that she's not some like ditzy reality TV star who's there to just make money. She's honestly using her platform to change people's lives. So I'm excited to see what the 40s have for Kim K. Happy birthday.
Same. Happy birthday, Kim. And you guys can find out what else to watch courtesy of Ash Crossan every Thursday here on ET Live. You can catch her on Stream Queens, 5:30 Pacific on Thursdays.